Welcome to a new season in our lives. We are on a mission to demolish the arguments that have kept us from taking our next step towards true Christian authenticity. Are you ready to tear down those self-protective masks that are holding you back in life, in business, in relationships? It's about mindset, but more specifically, learning to keep our minds set on Christ regardless of circumstance. This is the Mindset School podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Easterling. Let's be real, okay? Are you ready? Let's go. Hey, friend, let's get straight in today's topic. Conflict. Ugh, right? It shows up in our businesses, in our homes, in our relationships, in our families, and it never seems to come at the right time. But here's the thing. Conflict doesn't mean something's wrong with you or your relationships. It's actually a signal that you care. Today, we're talking about our conflict roads. And these are the paths that we default to when tension hits the fan. Whether that looks like shutting down, avoiding the issue, or driving headfirst into fixing it all. And spoiler alert, none of these roads get us exactly to where we want to be, but I'm going to break down each of these conflict styles so you can understand habits and stop spinning your wheels in frustration. Plus, I'm going to share the story of one of the hardest seasons of my life and how a small moment of hope turned everything around. And we're going to look at a biblical example that shows of how God can work even in the messiest conflicts. So let's get to it. Let's start by reframing how we see conflict. Most of us avoid it, but the truth is conflict confirms that you do actually care. If you didn't care about relationships or the outcome or the work, you wouldn't even engage. Romans 12:18 says it this way. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Notice it doesn't say avoid conflict. It says to pursue peace. And this requires action and effort. So instead of seeing conflict as something to fear, see it as an opportunity to grow, to strengthen connections, and to bring clarity. So now let's talk about these conflict roads. So what these are our conflict styles. These are the paths that we naturally default to when tension arises. When we hit that road bump in the road, every road has its challenges, right? But the first step is recognizing when we do hit that road bump, where do we normally go? What is our conflict style? These conflict roads are going to bring clarity, not only to you and how you navigate the path, but maybe how your closest relationships handle conflict. And understanding these different conflict styles, it's going to bring some clarity to what's really happening in this situation. Two different conflict styles brings a different dynamic to the table. So maybe as we go through these, you're going to recognize your conflict road that you go to when a road bump, a speed bump comes your way. The first way that some of us handle conflict is the fast lane. This person rushes towards resolution. The fast lane is about urgency. You're eager to fix the problem as quickly as possible. And you think, let's handle this now so that we're done with it and it's over and it's behind us. It's direct. But here's the thing. Sometimes speed can overwhelm others. It might bulldoze emotions, miss important details, or unintentionally dismiss someone's perspective in your rush. And if this is your road, I just ask that you pause and ask, am I solving this for my own comfort, or am I truly listening to the other person? Sometimes, if we're a fast lane type of resolution to problems and conflict, slowing down is the most effective way to move forward. The second conflict style, maybe you're a person that your conflict style is the detour. You're the person that is avoiding the issue. The detour is the road of indirect avoidance. You might change the subject, stay busy, or focus on other tasks to avoid addressing the conflict. Perhaps passive aggressive behavior is what you go to. It often shows up here. And instead of addressing your frustration and the things that are going on in your mind, and the conflict stays internal, but it comes out as sarcastic comments or dropping a hint or using a subtle dig. And it feels safer to do it that way, the indirect way, but it leaves unresolved tension, and that can grow over time. So is your conflict style the detour? If your conflict style is the detour, I challenge you to take one small step towards engagement. Start with something like, I noticed some tension and I'd like to talk about it. The key is to stop steering around the issue and start addressing it. Okay, the third conflict style is the roadblock, shutting down completely. This conflict style is a total shutdown. Instead of sidestepping the conflict like the detour, you refuse to engage at all. This often looks like the silent treatment, stonewalling, withdrawing completely emotionally. While it might feel like self-protection, the roadblock deepens disconnection. And this silent treatment, it can leave the other person feeling rejected and punished or confused. If this is your road, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Am I creating more distance by refusing to engage? I know vulnerability can be hard, but it's necessary to move forward. So the detour and the roadblock may seem similar. The detour is indirect. You're avoiding the issue by skirting around it. But the roadblock is a direct disengagement. You've built a wall and you refuse to participate. Recognizing this difference helps us to understand what we usually go to and how to choose a healthier plan. The fourth conflict style is the roundabout, circling without resolution. This roundabout is where you engage in the conflict, but keep circling around the issue without resolving it at all. You revisit the same arguments. You rehash old grievances. You focus on surface level concerns without addressing the roots of the problem. Passive aggression can also appear here. For example, you might say, I'm fine, when clearly you're not. Or you might make cryptic comments that leave the other person frustrated and defensive. If this is your road, challenge yourself to name the real issue. What's at the heart of this conflict? What is it that I actually need? What is one actionable step we can take to move forward? Clarity is key to getting off of this road, the roundabout. The fifth conflict style is the bridge, building a connection. The bridge is a road we all want to take. It's about connection, empathy, and intentional resolution. On this road, you listen actively, you communicate clearly, you focus on solutions that honor relationship. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Ask yourself, what would it look like to choose the bridge in this situation? It's not the easiest road, but it's the one that leads to real connection and healing. Now that you know the conflict roads and may have recognized your own default style, let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain during conflict. Because friends, this isn't just about our habits or our personalities. This is brain science at work. When you face conflict, your brain goes into protection mode. Even if you're not in physical danger, your brain can't tell the difference between an argument with your spouse and being chased by a bear. This is called your amygdala response. It's where that fight, flight, or freeze instinct kicks in. If you're a fast lane driver, your brain is in fight mode. You might think, if I fix this fast, I'll feel safe again. And if you're on the detour, your brain goes into flight mode saying, if I avoid this, the danger will go away. And if you're stuck in the roadblock, that's freeze mode, where your brain is saying, just shut down, don't engage. It's safer this way. And if you're in the roundabout, your brain is over processing, trying to solve the issue by spinning in circles, thinking, if I overthink this, I'll find the perfect way out. But here's the good news. God designed our brains with the ability to change. This is called neuroplasticity. And it means that our brains can create new pathways, new ways of responding to conflict that are healthier and more productive. Romans 12:2 reminds us, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So while your brain might want to default to these old habits, these old patterns, these old neural pathways, these old trails, and going directly to the easiest path that's already been mapped out in your mind, you have the power to pause, to reflect, and choose a better road. Now, let's talk about just how to do that, how to move from these default conflict styles to building bridges that connect and heal. Let me take you back to one of the hardest seasons of my life. My ex-husband and I were newly married with 2 small kids, and we were broke. And when I say broke, I mean not 2 pennies to rub together kind of broke. He was in flight school, and childcare just wasn't in the budget. Our marriage was tense. Our finances were a mess. And in most days, we were just trying to survive. But there was this one thing in one season that we got right: our schedules. What that looked like is I worked mornings at this Italian restaurant in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was called Zio's. And he worked nights at the same restaurant. And during the shift changes, our kids would sit in the back room of the restaurant, happily munching on warm bread while I introduced my husband at the time to my tables. And that little switch for us to be able to make that transition allowed us to work through our schedules during this season of our life. Hey, that warm bread didn't fix all of our problems, but it became a bridge, a moment of connection in the middle of chaos. What is your bridge today? What is your warm loaf of bread? What is one small thing that you can hold on to start building a bridge in your life, in your relationships? So now that you know your conflict road, let's talk about repair. Here's how to build bridges, not walls. Number 1, pause and reflect. Ask yourself the question, what's really happening here? Is this about me, or is this about the other person's perspective? Number 2, clear the debris. Addressing misunderstandings directly with clarity and kindness, stating the facts and get the other junk out of the way. Let's clear the debris. Let's address these misunderstandings directly in a kind way and in a clear and concise way. Number 3, feel the potholes. Let's resolve these small issues before they grow into bigger, and bigger problems. If we'll begin to fill these potholes in the communication and in these conflicts, we'll begin to not have potholes to fall into whenever we do hit that speed bump. And number 4, add a rest stop. Take time. Take your rest stop to pray, to process, to gain perspective before re-engaging. Ask for that break yourself, or ask if someone else needs a break and you could revisit the conversation. And number 5, focus on the scenic route. A good scenic road trip is so good for the soul, right? Just looking out, my favorite time is fall to do this. I remember one part of the road trip that we used to take every Thanksgiving when my mom lived in East Texas. And the road trip in this particular area, the road was covered in these trees that were turning colors and change. How can we take that road trip and look at the potential and possibility for change. Those changing trees, the different colors, the yellow, the red, the green, the orange. There are so many opportunities to see things differently and highlight the good in the relationship and build on that foundation. So be willing to take the scenic route. In Genesis, Joseph faced betrayal and hardship from his own brothers. Yet, when he reunited with them, he said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Joseph chose the bridge. He didn't ignore the pain, but he focused on God's greater purpose, and it led to healing and restoration. What would it look like for you to choose the bridge in your relationships today? So what do we learn today? Number one, conflict confirms that you care. It's an opportunity. It's not a failure. Number two, recognize what is your conflict road and take the steps towards healthier communication. Number three, build bridges, not walls, to repair and strengthen relationships. And number four, look for your warm loaf of bread, a small light in a hard season that points a way forward. Romans 15:13 says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." You've got this, friend. Let's take our next step together. Thank you for joining me today on our journey towards Christian authenticity and a Christ-centered mindset. Remember, the masks that we wear not only hide our true selves, but also keep us held back, living small in life, in business, and in relationships. As we wrap up, I invite you to take a crucial step towards your breakthrough. I created the Breakthrough Quiz just for you. Head over to themindsetSchool.net/quiz and dive in to discover a guide to move you closer to your authentic self and renewing your mind God's way. Until next time, let's be real, okay?